Hello, and this is our first lecture for the course. This will be Chapter 1. In this chapter, we introduce some basic economic concepts that we're going to apply throughout the rest of the semester. And so I'm going to start out like I do with all my classes, and if you are currently taking Econ 4, Principles of Microeconomics this semester or a previous semester with me, definitely with me, then you have seen much of this before. In microeconomics and macroeconomics, we cover the same similar material for the first couple of weeks. We cover scarcity, we cover production possibilities, and we cover supply and demand. After supply and demand, the two courses will be quite different. So start out with why there is economics. And economics is due to the fact that we have an economic problem of scarcity, and this problem is due to two things. First of all, we have essentially unlimited human wants. We as society like to have all these nice things. We as consumers like to have nice homes, cars, all these nice things. And the problem is we have limited resources, our ability to produce those things. And so limited resources, or the term resources, is also known as factors of production. These are the things that are used to produce goods and services. And so your economic textbook will introduce three main categories of resources. And first one is land. That's natural resources. That's what we find out there in the earth. Things we dig out of the ground, ores, we pump out oil, we use the farmland, we use land for highways, we use the sun for growing crops, for keeping us alive, for solar energy. All those things are natural resources. Then we have you and I people, that's labor, or human resources, and that's both our manual and mental work. And then we have a thing called capital. Capital is something that has to be produced. We don't just find it out there. Capital is produced using land, labor, maybe thousands of years ago we got the first basic tools, and then since then we use probably other kind of capital combined with land, labor to produce more capital. And the thing about capital is that it allows labor to become more productive. Capital comes in two forms, physical and human capital. Physical capital would be tools, equipment, factories, trucks, oil rigs. And human capital would be the knowledge, the education, the experience that the workforce has. Both make workers more productive. If I give you a hammer, without the knowledge of using it, it's not very useful, but I give you a hammer and the knowledge of using it, then becomes quite useful for the worker. Now understand that in this class, capital is something that's real. It makes workers more productive. It's tools, equipment, infrastructure, knowledge, experience. All that is very useful. It's very practical. Understand that capital is not money. Money is not useful, pretty much. I mean, money is not used to make anything directly. It's a financial instrument. It's something that societies have created to allow us to conduct transactions, but it's not used in production, thus it's not capital. I know the capital out there in the business community sometimes is used as a word for money, but not in this class, not when you talk to economists. If I say money, things like that, I will use the term financial capital. That means investment means the increase in the amount of current capital. So investment means you actually have to add to the infrastructure. You have to add to the equipment. You have to add to the tools. You have to add to the knowledge. So if you build a factory, that is investment. If I build a fence around my farmland, that would be investment. If I send my workforce to Chaffey College to take courses in computer programming, that would be investment. But buying shares of stock, buying corporate bonds, putting money into real estate is not investment because nothing has been produced that makes the economy more productive. Now, since our ability to satisfy human wants falls short of the production of goods and services needed to satisfy our wants, much of our resources are said to be scarce. So know for the rest of the term what scarcity is. It means more is desired than the amount available. So what is scarce? Pretty much everything out there. Beachfront property is scarce. Land in downtown LA is scarce. Raw materials are scarce. Energy is scarce. Labor is scarce. An example of scarcity that I have two videos that I want you to watch, and that'll be right below this lecture in the module in Canvas. And this is the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, also known as ANWR. This is the land up in the northern part of Alaska that is unspoiled, has not been developed, has no single roads in it, no structures. It's the way it was 10,000, 20,000 years ago. And back in 1980, President Jimmy Carter signed the Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act, which set aside this area as land not to be developed. And it was 8 million acres, protected wilderness, officially banning gas drilling and other kinds of drilling, oil drilling as well, on that refuge. Now that's an example of scarcity because a lot of people like to develop that land. And so we can't have both. If we're going to leave the land the way it is, then we cannot develop it. If we want to develop it, then you cannot have it as a pristine area. If you're going to develop the land, we lose something there. There's going to be cost, and that is the national wildlife the way it is. We're going to lose that, at least part of it. Depends how much destruction is done. And if we want to keep it the way it is, then we're not going to be able to drill out of there the oil, natural gas, and the other minerals that are there. And that's a problem with scarcity. We have to make choices. And so what economics tries to do is tries to achieve the next best solution to scarcity, because we're not going to be able to solve scarcity, and that is the maximization of the satisfaction of human wants. So right here we have a nice little definition of economics. Economics is the study of choices concerning the allocation. Allocation means how we're going to decide what we're going to do with these resources, of scarce resources, that nature and previous generations have provided. Previous generations would be the capital infrastructure left to us in order to maximize the satisfaction of human wants. And so we have to make decisions about how we're going to use these resources. And the 3 main decisions for any society are right here. All societies have to decide what they're going to produce, how they're going to produce, and for whom. What means what are the goods and services. How means how we're going to manufacture these things. Are we going to use large factories? Are we going to use more labor, less capital? Are we going to use robots? And then after that, we have to decide who's going to get all these nice things to consume. And so economics is pretty much centered around answering these 3 questions right here. And any time we're going to make a decision, we're going to make a choice, there is going to be a cost. Something has to be given up. If we're going to use these resources to make more cars, then they cannot be used to make more Frisbees. And that cost is called the opportunity cost. And whenever the word cost is used in this class by itself, that means opportunity cost. And that is the benefits foregone from the best alternative not. So if you use your time to go to the beach this weekend, then your time cannot be used to do something else. So let's say that, for example, you would have gone to work instead of going to the beach. And so if you go to the beach, the cost of going to the beach would be not just the money you spent to drive down there and parking, but also the wages you have given up by not going to work. And so together, what you paid out of pocket and what you forego together would be your opportunity cost. And every society has to make choices and there are several ways to allocate resources. Now, the principal way in the U.S. economy is through markets, which is why we're going to spend a lot of time talking about markets, and especially in microeconomics, you'd spend the whole semester talking about markets. Markets allocate goods and services by prices. People who are willing and able to pay the price get the item. People who are not willing and are not able do not get it. We can also make decisions based on central planning. That will be more of a command economy. That is where decisions are made by some kind of government entity. In our society, we have a fair amount of government involvement. Government decides allocation of lots of our resources. The government spends a lot of money on military, on highway construction, on space exploration, medical research, and so forth. So indirectly, because we have a democracy, at least for now, people can vote, and that can have an impact on the decisions made by government. We can decide things based on first come, first serve, a line mechanism, wait lists for classes at Chafee. We can decide things based on equality, making things equal for people. Maybe need. Those in need to have help, we help them out with financial aid for college. Housing subsidies. Fairness. Make the society fair in the sense that everyone has an equal opportunity. And maybe luck. You can win the lottery in California. You could be born into a very wealthy family, and that's also lucky. So we can decide how to allocate our resources and answer these questions at the top there on many different kinds of mechanisms. But for most societies, it's usually markets and central planning. And much of our debates in politics is pretty much between markets and central planning. Should our resources be allocated by government directive to some degree, or should it be done by markets? Healthcare. Should healthcare be only allocated, produced by the private sector, or should government have some say in healthcare, maybe provided directly through a single payer, something like Medicare for all? We'll stop there, and we'll pick this up with Lecture 2.